Good afternoon. I'm Laura Zervos, and I'm a registered dietitian and licensed nutritionist. Excuse me. And I'm so excited to be here today on behalf of Lending Hearts to share a program with you that I've called Fall Finds, and it's delicious fall finds. It's those vegetables and fruits and meals that are popular this time of year. I tried to include some Oktoberfest-ish recipes that have a lightened approach to them. And I've tried to have lots of vegetables and lots of herbs and spices that have anti-inflammatory properties, that have a lot of phytonutrients, that have a lot of fibers, all those things that are going to keep us healthy and happy. So let's get started. I have so much today, always ambitious. I always try to give you the most recipes in the smallest amount of time. Today we're going to do, our first item is going to be a sweet potato hash, which is really sweet potatoes that are going to be roasted in the oven. I'm going to choose to keep the skin on them just to get some more fiber in there. We're going to get those started right away. So I'm going to adjust my camera, keep on talking because those are going to take the longest time. So let's get started on that. Let me just put it like this so you could see what's going on here. And I've already, before class, I've already diced some sweet potatoes, and I just have them in like 1/2-inch cubes. Just because too, I wanted to tell you about when you're cutting them, and let me grab another one here, an extra. They really, really want to roll on you. So what you want to do first is create a flat edge as best as you can. Even if it's just something, just a small one, doesn't have to be big, and you could always discard. Now it's not going to move on you. You won't get cut. These are, and then I've also discarded both ends, and I scrubbed them really well with a bristle brush and some cool water, and then patted them dry. So that's what this is. And then I just left a few here to show you what kind of inch I'm doing, what size dice I'm doing rather. And remember, it's important that you always want to have them as uniform as possible. There are going to be some exceptions because this guy on the end is probably going to be a little smaller than some of the other ones. But you just want to keep them as uniform as possible, just so they cook evenly. You don't want to have some that are done way ahead of time, and you don't want to have them that are that take much longer to cook or have some hard pieces in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to add this to our bowl like that. And then we are going to toss in some olive oil and some spices. I have that here right behind me. I don't like the way that one looks. And just probably about a tablespoon. And you could use olive oil or avocado oil. And again, I have these all on my website, laurazervos.com, just in case you are looking for them. And I will have the nutrition ingredients as well as some photos of, the preparation and what each stage looks like, just in case you weren't able to catch it all. So again, laurazervos.com. There's also a lot of these on my Instagram and my Facebook as well. So you could find all those here. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to add our salt and pepper. And I have some right here, some kosher salt. And it's probably about a little less than a teaspoon. Stir that in. And we also have some paprika, about a teaspoon. And what I like is to, and you'll see, this is usually a staple in regular hash, not even just the sweet potato hash. I did not go with the smoked variety. Sometimes we do that in class, but today I just wanted to keep it almost like our other recipe, like another corned beef, like a regular hash might be. So we're going to add that to our bowl here. Our casserole dish. And we're just going to stir that around. Make sure it's all nice and coated. And we're going to put this in a nice hot oven, about 400 to 450 degrees. Convection, if that's available to you. If not, you definitely want to be on that higher heat. Try to get a level layer as you can. And there's going to be some ones that stick up there, but that is okay. And we're going to get this in the oven right away because this one is going to take us a little bit of time. And what we're going to do is we're going to put that in our oven, and every once in a while I'm going to sneak away to give it a stir, just so it's not browning too much anywhere. So let's get that in. And again, the sweet potato is, we typically think of a hash with white potatoes, but I thought it might be fun, sweet potato this time of year, also loaded with a lot of nutrients. And then I just thought it might be fun. And there's other things that you could add. We're going to saute some shallots, some onion, and some garlic towards the end, and then stir it all in together and then garnish with some parsley. You could certainly change that up too. Sometimes hashes have meat items in them too, like sausage or kale, to add another green in there as well. So many options with this, just trying to keep it light. Try not to overpower it so it'll go great with all of your main dishes. Or, we could always make this our main dish as well. So let's get started on our next item, which is a pork chop. And it also has some roasted vegetables. And I thought this would be a great recipe to do this time of year. Number one, sometimes, and I just wanted to bring the pork chop in. We have been doing a lot of meatless recipes lately, which I love. And I thought, why not do, I found in practice that a lot of people are either afraid to cook pork or they're staying away from it altogether. And maybe it's just the way they're cooking it. A lot of my clients report to me that it's dry. So I thought I would give you a really great weeknight menu recipe that you could prepare on a sheet pan. And there's so many varieties to this, but we're going to give you one version. I'll have the other options on my website, but I thought this would be really like an easy weeknight dinner. And I promise you it's not going to be dry because we're going to do a few things to ensure that. So let's get our pork chops and the rest of the items. Today, I'm going to do it with a chopped carrots, because I thought that's a nice, again, staying with our orange theme. So what I did before class is I just peeled them. So we'll cut those first and get that all ready. And then we will get the pork chop on there as well. But I wanted to mention that this could be, I was going to do the butternut squash. We did that last class. So I thought, let's mix it up a little bit. We could also add maybe fingerling potatoes or red skin potatoes cut in half along with this as well. That would be really nice. You could also do Brussels sprouts, turnips. All those would be excellent options. Whatever you have on hand. You can even do broccoli or cauliflower. I'm just always thinking of those, what makes a meal good. And what makes a meal good is something that's varied in flavor, texture, color, and taste. So didn't want to have everything white, didn't want to have like cauliflower and pork. And I always get that question a lot too. Pork is, they say the other white meat because of the nutrition value. There are some very nice lean cuts. We've done some classes where we've had the pork tenderloin, and definitely low, more like a chicken breast nutrition profile, right? Really high in protein, really low in fat. And we know that no matter if we're doing chicken, beef, pork, or fish, that 1 ounce of all of those is not going to have any carb, always going to have around 7 grams of protein per ounce. And then the fat is going to vary, whether it's that chicken and fish over on this end, whether it is our dark meat chicken and some other cuts of beef. And then at the other end of the spectrum, we have those really fatty cuts of beef, like maybe the ribeye, or I was going to say prime ribeye, or cheese and peanut butter and eggs, those things that are higher fat content, but still good. One thing I like about pork is that it does have all the 9 essential amino acids, high in thiamine, high in zinc. It does have this a similar iron profile as beef, also high in B12. So it's just a really nice addition. And the chops that we have here today that we're going to be using are a loin chop, a center cut loin chop. So they are one of the leaner cuts. Anything that has that loin in the name is usually the leaner cut. So excited to do that. And that is probably why some people do get a little afraid back, going back 20 years ago, we used to hear about, some people were afraid to cook pork because of trichinosis. We know that if you cook it to the proper temperature, you should be okay to get it out of that temperature danger zone. And then we know also, maybe that's why people are afraid, or it was just drying out on them. So we're going to do a really nice recipe today. So let's get our carrots started. And I was trying to decide what cut I'm going to do. I think I'm just going to cut them on the bias. I am going to make them a little thicker. So cutting on the bias is just getting that diagonal cut. Just because just gives us a nice shape. I mean, certainly we could also, we could have done something like this as well too. We could do those. Let's just continue with our bias cuts. And on some of these bigger ones, just cut them in half first. So again, just cutting them on the bias, a little bit thicker than I typically do. They're going to be in the oven for a lot. I mean, it's probably about, last one, not going to be too big. They're probably less, a 1/4 inch or a little bit less. And again, it depends on your carrots too. If you have a large carrot, like those really large, they call them horse carrots, you're going to want to make sure that you probably do them in half and half again. And then if you happen to buy them and they're this size, you could always just go from there. Make that judgment call. We'll get these here too. So lots of options with this. And then we're doing this all on the sheet pan. That's the other reason why I didn't go with the julienne. But I just didn't think I had enough room. And again, just washed and peeled these. Let them dry. That's why you saw me discard my paper towel because remember, if these are wet when we put them on our pan, they're going to steam, right? So we want to get them nicely browned along with our pork chops. So we dry them. If they're very wet, they're just going to steam and they're going to be mushy. So we want to make sure that we get rid of that. We put a little bit of oil on to get them brown and crisp. So again, this could come together. This is something that could be done a day ahead of time too. You could always cut them and you could put them, after you rinse them off, you could put them in a container and put a paper towel in there to absorb any other excess moisture. So that's what we have here. And I'm going to go ahead and put these back in our container, but I just wanted to cut those in front of you just to see again. All right. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to do our pork chops, but first we're going to get our bowl and we're going to whisk together. This one is a roast pork and it's going to have like a maple glaze on it, maple Dijon glaze. So we're going to take a little bit of mustard of here, about a tablespoon. And we're also going to add our olive oil. And some maple syrup. I have about a tablespoon in here, not too much, just enough to impart some flavor. And we're just gonna start with my spatula actually, because I don't want to get all that goodness stuck in my whisk and have to, since we don't have too much. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to put our pork chops in here, and then we're going to put them on a parchment lined baking sheet. So I'm gonna get my sheet over here, move my carrots aside. And see. Also going to add add my salt and pepper in here too. Just about a half teaspoon of kosher salt and about a half teaspoon of freshly cracked pepper. Okay, so we're just going to put them in there like that and get it coated. Set it on our sheet pan. Okay, I might just take a little bit off of another one here, just so they're even. Make sure we have enough little space between those. And some pans here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our herbs and we're going to mix those together in a small bowl. So I have shallots, I have parsley, and I have garlic. So I'm going to take all of that, I'm going to put it in the bowl. I have garlic, and I have some fresh ginger, not too much. I always like to use fresh too. And we have shallots. And we have parsley. And what I'm going to do is mix all that up together. And just keep working and working. Okay. Put that right on a pork chop. So work here, this out, and I'm just going to divide it evenly, and then I'm going to press it in. And I'm going to reserve a little bit for our carrots as well. So we have our pork chops here. I'm going to wipe some on the other side. Don't want to forget about the other side. Okay. So we're going to leave those on that side. And then I'm just going to use the container that I had my carrots in. And I'm going to put the remainder of those in here. So really the only difference is these aren't getting the maple and the mustard. Those a little stir. Okay. And also, so we could have done, like I said, the fingerlings in here as well. And let me just move this over so you can see, we could have done the fingerlings here as well, and even half fingerlings and half carrots. So you get that starch and the vegetable in there. But I always like when I have a when everything when there's more than one course or more than one dish, it just makes for less work. You know what I mean? Like when you have perhaps for example, stuffed pepper, that you have the vegetable, you have your protein, and you have your starch all in one item. So look how nice that looks, how nice that comes together. So we're going to put this in the oven for probably about 10 minutes before we check the temperature. And then we will see what we have to do, if we have to remove anything. So let's get this in here now. And I'm gonna set a timer for us. I'm gonna give our other our sweet potatoes a stir. And they're coming along very nicely. Real nice. So I'll show you what those look like. They're just sizzling real nice. We'll get those back in the oven. And I'm going to set our timer for, I'm going to set our timer for about 10 minutes. Okay. Just because I don't want that to get away from us. So we're ready to do our next item. So we have two more items. We have our roast acorn squash. And that's probably going to take 10 minutes, and we have a braised cabbage. So why don't we get our cabbage started as well? So I could show you the prep for that. Okay, so let's get our cabbage prep. And this is all we have. And again, I always talk about my mise en place, and that's just all my preparation for class. So everything is in one space and we don't forget anything. And that would be all the ingredients, all the main ingredients, all the spices, all the herbs, any utensils that you may need. So when you start getting, and you remember, you want to always read through the entire recipe. So, if you look at it, if that's the very first time you look at it, and then it's like, oh, well, now you need to stick this in the refrigerator for 40 minutes or 2 hours. And you're like, oh, okay. So you're not going to eat when you expect it to. So it's always good to do that. And again, if you are running into a recipe that's very labor intensive, I always recommend breaking it up into several steps. And just like we did today, like we had our sweet potatoes cut, not that that was getting in the way of anything, but if you are preparing these, in a rush, maybe when you get home from work or you get home from school, maybe if you have part of these done, like the vegetables prepped or something washed and cut already, it's going to, increase the likelihood that you're still going to do these things, because we don't want to miss out on those fruits and vegetables. Definitely want to get 5 servings a day. Sometimes those vegetables get left out. Sometimes they make it to our grocery cart, but they don't make it to the table. And they're very expensive right now, all food is. And so we just want to make sure that everything that comes into our home has a purpose and it's going to get used. And there may be alternative methods too. If you see something's going bad, maybe you could freeze it just to keep it fresh until you're ready to use it. So let's get started on our next item here, which is our cabbage, and then that'll just saute while we're working on our other items. So what we're going to do, this is just a real nice red cabbage dish. And let me show you here. I'm just going to go ahead and cut that. And we want a real nice, we want a real fine. I'm just going to cut it here to make it manageable too. And I like to cut out the core. And if we do that, sometimes what we do, if we just get a nice flat edge, And then we could do. Have it both nice and. Go ahead and add that to our, we have a Dutch oven for this recipe. We're just gonna bring that over here. I like this one. This is nice fall color here. It's not that popular brand. It's a different brand, but it still works just as well. And we're basically going to sweat this. I do have a small amount of oil in the pan. But really, it's going to have water and some balsamic vinegar in this one. And a little bit of syrup. Trying to do a lot of seasonal today. I thought, oh, why don't we do something with some maple syrup and the apples and all of these nice fall vegetables, and you'll see these a lot different, just a twist. Sometimes you see some of these braised cabbages, they typically might use a white cabbage, and the hash might use a white potato, and I thought, let's mix it up a little bit. So just get that in there. And this is a real nice recipe. And remember, if it's going to be nice and red like this, it has those anthocyanins, that phytonutrient that's really a powerful antioxidant. This is a real nice side dish. So we have our meat side dish, or we have our meat main dish with the vegetables. This makes an excellent side to take somewhere for all of your fall celebrations, whether you're invited for some seasonal parties. All of those are coming up, Halloween, Oktoberfest, harvest parties. A lot of harvest parties this year, I hear. And this cabbage goes a really long way. And remember last year, we, for this time of year, for our fall class, we did our harvest salad, which we had a little bit of red cabbage in there, but we also had our apples. So we're gonna add apples to this too. We're not going to add them right away. We're gonna wet down our cabbage first, and then we'll add the apples at the end, because I want them just to be a little bit crisper. Okay. We're gonna add all this. All right, and then we're gonna add, I already added our oil. And I have some onion here as well. Let's get a little onion on here. You could use a red onion, you could use a yellow onion, white onion. I just trying to keep with that purple theme. And then we're going to add a little bit of water, about a half cup of water. Okay, and then our balsamic vinegar. And a little bit of our some maple here. And then we have a few spices. We have a little bit of cinnamon and a little bit of nutmeg, just to get that fallness. You don't want to overpower it, so you may want to start with a smaller amount and then add more to taste. So we're just going to put this on to simmer real nicely. We'll just keep checking on this. And then when it's almost cooked, we're going to add some carrots for a little color and our yellow delicious apple. So let's just get that on. We're going to put that on nice and low so that can cook throughout class. Okay. So I'm gonna check on our sweet potato hash. Give my hands a wash, and then we will work on our next recipe. So let me go check this. Oh, those sweet potatoes are coming along nicely, and those are cooking. Our pork chops look really good too. I'm gonna take those out so you could see them. Just see them sizzling real nicely. So if you have a concern about cooking vegetables and something like pork or chicken on that same pan, you just need to remember that we can't, you would not want to take those carrots off before the pork is done. You want to make sure that once that pork is done, then you take them off. You don't want to take them off while there's still raw meat on there, unless you plan to finish the carrots off in another. You wouldn't want any of that raw juice on the carrots. So if you wanted to take them out sooner, you would want to either put them on another sheet pan to make sure they come up to temperature, and that's anything above 140, or maybe you want to finish them in a skillet or a saute pan. But that's important to note. So it can be done, and I think ours are all going to be done around the same time, so we should be fine. So anyhow, let's get started. We'll set our apples aside. That was our timer for our pork chops, but they look good. I think I'm gonna leave them in there for just maybe, well, let's give them a turn. Let me give them a little turn. And I'm gonna check the temperature on those in about 2 minutes. I can see they're not ready yet, but I'm gonna put on 2 minutes on our timer and let that go. And then we'll check that temperature again. So let's get our next item in the oven. And this is one of my favorite fall items. Actually, they're all my favorite fall items. But this is acorn squash. So let me show you my mise en place for this. This is acorn squash. So I already cut it beforehand before we came to class. So that's a real struggle. But anyhow, we'll take out those seeds. We're going to cut it into some circles, leaving our skin on. This is going to look beautiful on any platter. So let's get this in the oven now so it has enough time to cook. Okay. So what we're going to do, and let's get our everything ready here. Okay. So what we're going to do is first scoop out our seeds. Another spoon here. Discard the seeds. We're just going to use a large spoon. Scoop. You could save these. They can be toasted like a pumpkin seed, or you could use it to make to grow some more acorn squash. An acorn squash, you could probably guess it, is that it's high in the vitamin A because of the dark yellow color, almost orange color, light orange. Just like some of the pumpkin and the butternut squash. So sometimes they're a little bit darker, sometimes they're a little bit more yellow. And we know that those carotenoids are the precursors to vitamin A, so real rich source of that. Really good, one of those fat soluble vitamins. It's very good for our hair, skin, nails, and eyes. Let's get we're gonna just This is a really fun recipe. So we're going to, a little bit hard to cut. So what we're going to do is just leave that one on there. We're going to cut in about, I would say about a 1/2 inch slice. Look how beautiful. It's going to look beautiful on our plate. And another alternative is you can, we could leave this whole on a baking dish, rub it down with little olive oil, rub that this side too. You could leave it this way on a baking dish for, on a sheet pan in the same hot oven around 400 degrees convection, if that's available to you, in about 15 minutes. That will be a wonderful, wonderful side dish too. All right, there's our pork chop. Okay, and let me check the temperature of my pork. Okay, so it's around 140. So I'm gonna just broil it just to get a little bit brown, and then we'll take it out when it's around 145, and that should be just perfect when it's all finished. So I'm gonna do that. We'll finish cutting our acorn squash. Then we should be ready. Right here. And like I said, with the shape of this, when you cut it like that, you see that beautiful profile. This one more time. Okay, so we're gonna get, oops, there goes my apple. Sorry about that. We have our apples for the slot, so I just dropped those. So let's check on our pork. That should be done. Maybe another minute. I'm gonna put that on there for one more minute, and then we will finish up our squash. So what we're gonna do, let me adjust this our camera here. So we have our acorn squash, and then we cut it, and we're gonna put it in our bowl, and then we're going to drizzle some olive oil over it, which seems like we were doing a lot today. And then we're going to add all of our herbs. Let's put it in a bigger bowl, actually. Let's see if we can just put it in this one. So we have some more room. Okay, so we have our olive oil, just gonna add a little bit more. And then we're going to put on salt and pepper. And again, kosher salt, fresh cracked pepper. I have fresh garlic, about 3 cloves. And I have some sage, which goes real nicely on the squashes this time of year. And if you want to experiment with the sage, that's probably a good idea. And then some fresh parsley. And we're going to do at the end a little bit of farm cheese, about 1/3 of a cup. So let's give that a stir. How beautiful it looks already. We're not even. Onion. Okay, so let's get our dish that's already lined with parchment paper and let me check our pork chop. We don't want to get that overdone. And that looks really good. So I'm going to take that out for us. Everything looks good. Our carrots look good. Our pork looks good. So we have that. And I'm just going to set it aside here while we're working on our acorn squash. Okay. And we still have our sweet potatoes in here. So I'm going to keep those in here. All right, so let's talk about our acorn squash. We have this, and let me get my pan that we prepared for this one. Also going to do a sheet pan lined with parchment. This is one of my stoneware ones. I like using these. They heat really nicely, excellent for vegetable cookery. And I'm going to put these down a little bit more carefully. I don't want to lose all of our spices. I'm probably going to press some more spices onto here too. Want to make sure that they all get coated really well. I'll make another pan for after class, but what we want to do is we want to, I really don't like stacking them up like that. That's why I just don't want to crowd them too much. And these other pieces are just a little bit too big. So let's get some of these crumbles that we have on here. And we're just going to press them just like we did with our pork chops. Okay. So let's pop those in the oven. All right, so what we need for let's take a peek at our pork chops. I'll show you those and our carrots. Nicely done. And the temperature right next to the bone, you want to always go in, insert your thermometer, go probably about halfway in and then pull up a little bit. And we're still reading around, right now we're reading around 150. So that's perfect. And our carrots, they should be nice and tender. And they are, look at that, how beautiful. Makes a really nice presentation if you're having company. So let's get our platter. We'll arrange those. And we also need to give our cabbage a stir. I could guarantee these are not going to be dry. And of course, you could leave that on the same platter for your family. We're just here just for our presentation. Okay. looks good. Right, so let's set that aside. Give our cabbage a stir. Oh, and it's coming along so nicely. So let me bring that over. It's time to add our apples. Wow, this looks amazing. So not too hot yet. Oh my goodness, look at that. Look how nice this has cooked. Oh my goodness, it smells so good. So now I'm going to add the apples onto it. And while I do that, we're going to get something else started too, because our sweet potato hash is almost done. So I want to, the last part of the sweet potato hash is adding the onion and the shallots to it, so, and the garlic. So let's get that. We have here our onions, garlic, and shallots, and we're going to saute those and then add them to the hash. Let's get that all in here. So lots of garlic, onion, and shallots today, which all have some great antioxidant properties. So we'll just get those, we'll just sweat those down a little bit while we're doing everything. We'll cut our apple, add our apple to the cabbage, add our little pungent the garlic and the onion and the shallots, and I have to re-wash our apples because I dropped them. Okay. All right, so with our apple, what we're going to do is I like to slice them very thin. So I'm going to, again, you always want to establish that flat edge. So I'm gonna get a flat edge, and then since they're not going to be in there very long, I want to make sure that they're thin. And I chose the yellow delicious too, because they're nice and tender. I'm going to add those. And I'm going to put them, let me bring that over to you so you could see what I'm going to do here. And I like to do this sometimes if I don't want to have too much direct heat, but I want to cook something. So what I'm going to do is just cover this just with a little bit of cabbage, and they're just going to cook that way. I'm just going to cover them in there, and they're going to steam up real nice. Set this to the side. For the rest, and here are shallots. A nice little turn there. Get that going and finish the rest of our apple. And just having to, I'm going to save a little bit of apple for our garnish. Okay. Got a lot going on. We'll save a couple for that. And like I said, we're just going to cover those apples. I don't want them I don't want to saute them, just want them to be lightly steamed. So our cabbage is coming along nicely. We're going to cover this up. It smells amazing. I'm sure you might have been questioning that cinnamon and nutmeg, but boy, it smells wonderful. And now with these apples, that's going to be a really great dish. And you know what? If we didn't, we could serve a double vegetable, right? That would go really nicely with our pork too, or pork tenderloin, or any other kind of protein like that. So really excited about that. Let's take out our sweet potatoes. see how those are. They're nice and tender as well. So we're gonna start all this together, and I'm gonna move our acorn squash to another rack. Let that cook real nicely. All right, and let's get those in. I'm just gonna, I have them on a lower rack. I'm just gonna bring them up to the middle. And I'm going to, I have the heat lowered a little bit. I'm gonna put it back on 425. And I'm gonna give them a stir and then show you that they are mostly cooked. So let's grab our spatula. Oh, sorry. And they are, let me just put, oh, see how that just goes right through, nice and tender. So what we're gonna do now, we have our garlic, our shallot, and our onions. And we're just going to throw those in there. Those all mixed up. Oh, that looks so good. And again, this could be, like I said, sometimes you could use white potatoes, peppers, onions. You could add kale. You could add a sausage or anything like that. But then we're just going to do a little garnish, parsley garnish. Oh, that looked good. Okay, so let's take this and we'll put this with our other items. All right, and let me just check on this. That is coming along nicely. We could probably stir in the carrots. Not too hot. Let's give it a stir. A couple carrots. And we're going to leave our apples in just another few minutes. Let those. And we'll get ready. Line up all our dishes and talk about them. We'll plate them together. So let's get this back on the heat for just another minute or two, and then we'll talk about all of our dishes. We move our apple over. Just to save a few. Okay, all right. Okay, so for our fall menu, we utilized the acorn squash, which is coming out of the oven any minute now, and that's definitely something that we see this time of year. You have the acorn squash, you'll see the spaghetti squash, butternut squash, all great varieties to try. They all have something unique about them. And even within the acorn squash, you're going to see some variations. You'll see variations in the color on the outside. You can eat this. We left the skin on ours. It'll help hold the shape. If you were making a soup and you wanted to roast them first, you would definitely want to remove the skin. The skin is edible. It does contain a lot of fiber, and you might find that you like it once it is well cooked. But like again, if you're making a soup, you would want to remove that. And also, if you're baking it in the oven and you're having just a half of one of those, sometimes it's nice to leave the skin on because you could just scoop it out and eat it that way. It makes an excellent side dish, makes it a great addition to your lunch. I like to take that a lot of times myself. Excellent nutrition profile. They have a little bit less carbohydrate, and they have a good amount of fiber in them, a little bit less than the butternut squash. but it's still, like I said, an excellent source of those, the vitamin A precursor, the carotenoids, also a lot of phytonutrients, really great glycemic profile as well. Makes a really great alternative, since it's not as starchy as the butternut squash, but it's more starchy than, say, zucchini or broccoli or cauliflower. So it makes a really great side if you're having a lighter dish. It pairs well with our proteins like our pork and beef and chicken, but also well with fish and salmon, tuna, cod, those kind of things as well. Or it could stand alone, or it could be paired with some of our meat alternates. So that's nice to know. So we have that, and we have that spiced up, and it's nice to do that. It does do well on its own too. It doesn't need, has a lot of flavor on its own. Our next fall dish, we were just looking towards the Oktoberfest with all the pork dishes, and we did that nice pork and carrots again. Nice fall vegetable. Carrots obviously available year round, but you see them a lot in the fall too. A root vegetable. Great way to cook them. We could have used turnips. We could have used Brussels sprouts, butternut squash, so many other things that we could have used. Remember, what's important is we had something that was going to cook the right size, that was going to cook about that same time as the pork. So that's really important to remember. So everything is done there. We could have left it on the pan and just served it to our family that way, which is really nice, right? One pan for the protein and the vegetable. Serve it on that pan, easy cleanup as well. And we saw, if you had your carrots ready the night before and you had your pork chops all ready to go, again, a lot of other things we could have done with that too. We could have done chicken breast, we could have done pork tenderloin. But I think the pork is really nice for this one, the pork chop that we used actually. So many options there, and many options with seasonings, but it's nice to give it a nice coating to get all those herbs rubbed in on there. Don't be afraid to use the herbs. And we remember today, we used all fresh. We had everything was nice and fresh, which was a lot of fun. Excuse me. So we had just our other timer was going off there. So nice to use all those fresh herbs. And remember, they have a lot of antioxidant qualities as well, anti-inflammatory properties. So, and then we also did our sweet potato hash, which also has a lot of those carotenoids and precursors to vitamin A. So let's line everything up here so we could take a peek at it. And we have our acorn squash, sweet potato hash, and then we have the cabbage with apples. Let's get that over here. That should be done as well. Yeah, all kinds of timers going off here. Oh, this smells amazing. So I'm going to, well, I guess we could leave it in our beautiful Dutch oven here since it's nice and fall colored. And I'm going to, like I said, well, actually, let's put it in our nice dish. Then we could see, you could see everything. And again, you could see that balsamic vinegar. Great. I mean, look how nice this is to take to if you're going somewhere and you need a side dish. And remember, I say it all the time, be the one that brings the healthy side dish. There's always going to be a lot of those things that are easier that may be prepared earlier. But it's always nice to bring a vegetable or a fruit because there's always going to be those carbohydrate dishes. So it's nice to do that. Sure, it's not too hot here. And let's look at everything. We have this, and we could put a few fresh apples on top for our garnish. There we go. And we also have our, it's gonna be pretty hot, I'm sure. Let's take this over here. We have our sweet potato hash. Right there. And let's get our pork chops. Our carrots. So we did a lot in an hour. And we'll get out our acorn squash as well. And these are still sizzling. I'm probably gonna pop them back in the oven after class. But they're coming along real nicely. So there are our acorn squash. Look at all these shapes and colors. I just love when we have so many colors and so much going on. So I hope you try some of these recipes. We stick this back in the oven. I hope you're able to try some of these. It's so much fun to experiment with new recipes. And remember, just try maybe one new recipe a week. It's a lot to try several new recipes in 1 week because there's a learning curve there. So, it's a good idea to expose maybe one recipe to your family a week, see what works, see what doesn't work, see what's acceptable, what's a favorite, see what fits into your family schedule. And remember to, what we have here today, if I would bring out our acorn squash, a lot of beautiful colors. So remember, eating those 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day are going to keep us very healthy and happy. I hope you stay on the path to wellness. Please reach out to me if you have any questions. And again, all those recipes and the nutritional information is going to be on my website, laurazervos.com. Thank you so much and have a wonderful fall.